The smell hit me first. Not cologne. Not coffee. Blood, dried, rust-thick, clinging to the air like a secret that won't let go. I was 14 years old, standing in the doorway of our foster home's basement, watching Ania scrub her knuckles raw in a utility sink. The water ran pink, then red, then pink again. She didn't cry, didn't shake, just kept scrubbing like she was washing dishes. Are you going to stand there? Or will you help me? That's how it started. Not with a choice, really. More like gravity. My name is Malik, and for 25 years I was a ghost. People throw that word around, ghost, like it's some Halloween costume shit, some metaphor for being forgotten. But I mean it literally. I was the person who didn't exist in any story that mattered. The one who showed up after the blood dried, who made bodies into absences, who turned screaming nights into quiet mornings. I was Ania's fixer, her cleaner, her shadow, the architect of her lies. We met in the system. Detroit, 1993. West Side group home with peeling yellow paint and a furnace that only worked when it felt like it. I'd been bounced around since I was 8. My mom OD'd in a Cass Corridor motel, and my dad was a name on a birth certificate, nothing more. Ania came in a year after me, all elbows and rage, a girl with eyes that looked like they'd already seen the end of the world. She was 12. I was 13. And we made a pact in that cold basement, sitting on cinder blocks, our breath fogging in the January air. We don't leave each other, she said. Not ever. Blood don't matter. This matters. She cut her palm with a piece of broken glass. I did the same. We pressed our hands together and I felt her pulse against mine, fast and wild like a trapped bird. I believed her. You know what's funny? I think about that moment now, about the audience watching this, maybe sitting in bed or driving to work or folding laundry, and I wonder if you've ever made a promise like that. One you thought would save you. One that ended up being the thing that buried you alive. If you have, maybe you'll understand this story better than I do. And if you're still here, still listening, hit that like button. And subscribe. Not for me. For everyone who ever believed a lie so beautiful they couldn't see the cage being built around them. Ania was 17 when it happened. Some guy, Dominic I think his name was, worked at the corner store on Livernois. He'd been giving her looks for weeks, the kind that made your skin crawl. She told him to stop. He didn't. One night, she went in to buy cigarettes and he locked the door behind her. I don't know all the details. Ania never told me and I never asked. But when I got the call at 2 a.m., her voice was flat, dead, like someone had reached inside her and flipped a switch. I need you. I found her in the alley behind the store. Dominic was on the ground, his face a mess of split skin and broken teeth. He was breathing, barely, but the blood pool spreading under his head said he wouldn't be for long. Ania stood over him, a brick in her hand, her shirt splattered red. I didn't mean to, she whispered. I just... stopped talking. I was 17. A kid. But I looked at her, at the way her hands were shaking, at the terror crawling across her face, and I made a decision. Go home. Wash your clothes. Burn them if you can't wash them clean. I'll handle this. Malik. I said go. She ran. But I stayed. The cops found me an hour later, kneeling next to Dominic's body, my hands covered in his blood. I told them I'd gotten into a fight, that he'd tried to rob me, that things got out of hand. They didn't believe me, not really, but they didn't have another story, so they took the one I gave them. I was tried as an adult. 5 years in juvenile detention, then transferred to Jackson when I turned 18. I served 8 years total. Ania never visited. Not once. But she wrote. Letters every week filled with promises. I'm building something, Malik. Something big. When you get out, we'll never have to bow to anyone again. I swear on our blood. I held on to those letters like they were oxygen. I did push-ups in my cell until my arms burned. I read every book I could get my hands on. I learned how to be invisible, how to listen, how to make people forget I was in the room. I became a ghost because I thought that's what she needed me to be. Let me tell you what those 8 years actually looked like. Because it matters. Because you need to understand what I sacrificed, what I carved out of myself, to be her salvation. Jackson State Prison sits in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by flat Michigan farmland that stretches forever in every direction. The walls are gray concrete, 30 feet high, topped with razor wire that glints in the sun like broken teeth. In the summer, the heat turns your cell into an oven. In the winter, the cold seeps through the walls and settles in your bones, and no amount of blankets can shake it. I arrived there 3 days after my 18th birthday. They processed me in strip search, delousing shower, prison blues that smelled like industrial detergent and someone else's sweat. They assigned me to C block, cell 247, 6 by 8 feet. A cot bolted to the wall. A metal toilet with no seat. A small window too high to see out of, just a rectangle of gray light that told you whether it was day or night. My cellmate was a guy named Deshaun. Mid-30s in for armed robbery, third strike. He'd been down for 6 years already and had another 12 to go. He took one look at me, skinny, young, scared shitless even though I was trying not to show it, and said, "You got people?" "What?" "People. On the outside. Someone who's got your back in here." I thought about Ania. About her letters. About the promises she'd made. "Yeah," I said. "I got people." Deshaun nodded. "Good. You're going to need them." He wasn't wrong. Prison isn't like the movies. It's not constant violence, not shakings in the yard and riots in the cafeteria. Most of the time it's just waiting. Waiting for mail call. Waiting for yard time. Waiting for your sentence to tick down, one day at a time like water dripping from a rusted pipe. But the violence is there. Always. Simmering just under the surface. My first week, a guy named Terrence decided I looked soft. Easy. He cornered me in the shower block. 6 guys with him, all muscle and tattoos and cold eyes. Terrence got in my face, close enough that I could smell the instant coffee on his breath. "You somebody's bitch yet?" I was terrified. My hands were shaking. But I remembered something Ania had told me once, back when we were kids and some older boys were hassling us at the group home. Don't show fear. Even if you're scared, don't show it. Fear is blood in the water. So I looked Terrence in the eye and said, "I'm nobody's bitch. And if you try to make me one, I'll put you in the infirmary." He laughed. His boys laughed. Then he swung at me. I'd never been in a real fight before. But I'd watched. I'd learned. And when his fist came at my face, I ducked under it, drove my shoulder into his ribs, and took us both to the wet tile floor. I didn't win. Not really. His boys pulled me off him and beat me until the guards came. I spent 3 days in the infirmary with a broken nose and 2 cracked ribs. But Terrence left me alone after that. Word got around, the skinny kid from C Block might not be tough, but he'd fight back. And in prison, that's all you need. Not to be the strongest, just to be more trouble than you're worth. The letters from Ania were my lifeline. They came every Tuesday like clockwork. Thick envelopes on cream-colored stationery, her handwriting sharp and elegant. She wrote about the business she was building, the property she was acquiring, the contacts she was making. She wrote about the penthouse she'd buy when I got out, the car she'd put in my name, the life we'd have together. You're not forgotten, Malik. Every brick I lay, every deal I close, every step I take, it's for us. For what we promised each other in that basement. You gave me a future. I'm going to give you an empire. I read those letters until the pages wore soft as cloth. I memorized them. I believed every word. Deshaun used to watch me read them, a sad smile on his face. "Your girl?" he asked once. "My sister," I said. "Not by blood. But yeah." He nodded. "She tell you she loves you?" "In her way." "She send you money? Put funds on your books?" I hesitated. Ania sent letters but never money. Never care packages. Never photos. Just words. Just promises. "She's building something," I said. "She can't afford to yet." Deshaun didn't say anything. Just shook his head and went back to his book. Years later, I'd understand what he was trying to tell me. But back then, I was too deep in the lie to see it. I learned things in prison. How to read people. How to listen without seeming like I was listening. How to make myself invisible in a room full of predators. I read everything I could get my hands on. Philosophy, history, business, psychology. The prison library was small, maybe 300 books, most of them falling apart, but I went through it twice. I learned about the Stoics and their meditations on control. I learned about the Medici family and how they built an empire on secrets and favors. I learned about the human mind, about manipulation and influence and the lies people tell themselves to survive. I was building myself into the ghost Ania needed. I just didn't realize I was also erasing the person I could have been. I got out on a Thursday in March 2008. 8 years, 2 months, and 11 days after I walked into that prison. The world had changed. Cell phones were everywhere now, sleek little things that did more than make calls. The cars looked different. The music sounded different. Even Detroit looked different. Half the buildings I remembered were gone, replaced by empty lots and chain-link fences. Ania was waiting for me outside the gate in a black Mercedes S-Class. She wore a tailored charcoal suit, Louboutin heels, designer sunglasses that probably cost more than I'd made in my entire life before prison. She looked like money, like power. She looked untouchable. When I walked through those gates, carrying everything I owned in a paper bag, she pulled off her sunglasses and smiled. It was the same smile from the basement, from the alley behind Dominic's store, from every moment we'd ever shared. "Welcome home," she said. She hugged me and I felt her heartbeat against my chest, fast and strong. For a moment, I felt like everything had been worth it. For a moment, I believed the lie again. The next 15 years were a blur of work. Ania's empire was real. She owned properties across Detroit, luxury apartments in Midtown, commercial buildings downtown, renovated lofts in Corktown. She was expanding into Chicago, Atlanta, Charlotte. On paper, she was a self-made success story. A black woman who pulled herself up from foster care, who turned vacant lots into gold mines, who spoke at conferences and sat on non-profit boards and smiled for cameras. Behind the scenes, she was something else entirely. Forged permits, bribed inspectors, buildings that cut corners on safety to maximize profit, contracts stolen through intimidation, witnesses who suddenly developed convenient amnesia or disappeared altogether. And me? I was the glue holding it all together. I didn't carry a gun. Didn't need to. I carried presence. I carried the kind of quiet that made people realize their memories were flexible, that maybe they didn't see what they thought they saw, that maybe it was safer to forget. I was good at it. Better than I should have been. Ania paid me well. 6 figures, cash, offshore accounts she'd set up in my name, but I never spent much. I lived in a modest apartment in Ferndale, drove a 10-year-old Honda, wore the same 3 outfits on rotation. Money wasn't why I stayed. I stayed because I thought I owed her. Because I thought my sacrifice, those 8 years behind bars, had built the foundation of her success. Because I thought the promises in those letters would eventually come true. I thought I was the floor she stood on. I didn't realize I was just her favorite tool, one she'd use until I broke. The change didn't start with money. It started with love. Her name was Elena Vargas. I met her at a hospital in Ann Arbor. I'd taken a nasty cut on my forearm handling some broken glass at one of Ania's construction sites. Nothing serious, but it needed stitches. Elena was the nurse who patched me up. She had these hands, steady, gentle, like they had healed 1,000 wounds and would heal 1,000 more. Dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. Tired eyes that still managed to be kind. She didn't ask questions about the scar tissue on my knuckles, about the way I flinched when someone moved too fast behind me, about the prison tattoo I'd gotten covered up but that you could still see if you looked close enough. She just smiled, soft and real, and said, "You're tougher than you look." Something in my chest cracked open. I don't know what made me come back. Maybe it was the way she laughed, this full-throated sound that made the fluorescent hospital lights feel less cold. Maybe it was the way she saw me, really saw me, not as Ania's shadow but as a person. I started finding excuses. A follow-up appointment I didn't really need. A friend who worked at the hospital who didn't actually exist. Eventually, I just asked her to coffee. She said yes. We started slow. Coffee became dinners at a little Ethiopian place in Ypsilanti where she'd order too much food and insist I take the leftovers home. Dinners became walks around the U of M campus, talking about everything and nothing. Her nursing shifts, her family back in El Paso, her younger brother Mateo who was studying engineering at Wayne State. She told me about the patients she'd lost, the ones she'd saved, the impossible balance of caring too much in a profession that demanded you care just enough to function. I told her, some things. Carefully edited. The foster care. The streets. Property management, for a friend. I didn't lie exactly. I just left out the parts soaked in blood. For the first time in my life, I felt like I existed outside of Ania's orbit. Elena didn't know about the fixer, the shadow, the 8 years of silence in a concrete box. She knew Malik, just Malik. A quiet guy who worked too much, who liked old Motown records and terrible action movies, who sometimes woke up in the middle of the night and couldn't explain why. She made me feel like a human being. And that terrified me. Because I'd spent so long being a phantom that I'd forgotten what it felt like to cast a shadow. Ania noticed immediately. I started declining her late-night calls. Started saying no to jobs that would take me out of town for weeks. Started smiling more, laughing at things that weren't cruel or sharp. The first time I told her I couldn't handle something because I had plans, she went quiet on the phone. Plans? She repeated. What kind of plans? Personal ones. Are you seeing someone? Maybe, I said. Malik. Her voice shifted, got softer, more dangerous. You know that's not smart. People like us, we don't get to have normal lives. We can't afford the liability. I'm not asking for permission, Ania. I hung up. That was my first mistake. At first she was subtle. You seem distracted, she'd say when we met for our weekly check-ins at her penthouse. Everything okay? I'm fine. This girl, Elena? She'd learned her name somehow. Of course she had. She knows what you do. She knows I work in property management. Property management. Ania smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. That's what we're calling it now? She doesn't need to know everything. Or anything, apparently. Ania poured herself a scotch, swirled it in the glass. You're playing with fire, Malik. You know what happens when people get too close? They start asking questions. They start seeing things they shouldn't. Elena's not like that. Everyone's like that. Given enough time. I stood to leave. I'm just trying to protect you, she called after me. Like you protected me. I kept walking. The campaign started small. Elena's promotion at the hospital, the one she'd been promised for months, got delayed. Budget cuts, they said. Then a parking ticket she swore she'd paid turned into a warrant when the payment mysteriously didn't process. Then her apartment building had a string of break-ins. Nothing stolen, but things moved, drawers left open, a sense that someone had been inside. Elena started sleeping less. Started checking her locks 3 times before bed. Started looking over her shoulder. I didn't connect it at first. Why would I? Ania was my sister, my family, my blood. She'd promised we'd never abandon each other. But then Mateo got jumped. It happened on a Tuesday in March. Elena called me at 11 p.m., her voice shaking so hard I could barely understand her. They hurt him, Malik. They hurt my baby brother. I met her at Detroit Receiving Hospital. Mateo was in the ER, his face swollen beyond recognition. Broken ribs. Fractured jaw. Concussion. 3 guys in ski masks had cornered him outside his dorm, beaten him until he couldn't stand, then disappeared into the night. The cops wrote it off as a random robbery. College kid in the wrong place at the wrong time. But his wallet was still in his pocket. His phone was untouched. And when I looked at the security footage from the dorm, I saw the way the attackers moved. Professional, efficient, controlled. This wasn't random violence. This was a message. I went to Ania's penthouse that night. Didn't call ahead. Just used the key I still had and walked into her sanctuary at 2 a.m. She was awake, of course. Sitting in her living room with a glass of wine, looking out at the Detroit skyline like she owned it. Maybe she did. Malik. She didn't turn around. This is a surprise. You didn't have to do that. Do what? Mateo. Elena's brother. Now she turned. Her face was calm, unreadable. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't. My hands were shaking. Don't insult me by pretending. She stood, walked to her bar, poured me a scotch without asking. Held it out. I didn't take it. People get hurt, Malik. It's a dangerous city. She sipped her wine. Maybe Elena should move somewhere safer. Somewhere far from here. Somewhere you're not. That's when I understood. This wasn't about protecting me. This wasn't about loyalty or love or the blood pact we made in a freezing basement 25 years ago. This was about control. Ania didn't see Elena as my happiness. She saw her as a threat to my usefulness. A distraction from my purpose. And she'd burn down everything I loved to keep me in her orbit, to keep me as her ghost, her tool, her shadow. She'd always been the monster. I'd just been too blind to see it. I did you a favor, she said, her voice soft, almost kind, like she was explaining something to a child. People like us don't get to be happy, Malik. We only get to be powerful. Happiness is a luxury. Power is survival. She held out the scotch again. Now take the drink. Sit down. And let's talk about the Houston deal. I didn't yell. Didn't break things. Didn't even finish my drink. I just stood up, walked to her kitchen counter and put down 3 things. My keys to her properties, my phone that she paid for, and the offshore account information she'd set up in my name. "What are you doing?" she asked. "I'm done." "You can't be done. We made a promise. You broke it first." I looked at her, really looked at her, and saw a stranger wearing my sister's face. "You broke it the moment you decided my happiness was less important than your control. Malik. I took 8 years for you. I gave you my freedom, my youth, my clean record. I gave you everything. And you turned it into chains. I turned it into an empire." Her voice cracked. "Everything I built for us." "No." I shook my head. "You built it for you. I was just the foundation you buried." I walked to the door. "If you leave," she said, and now there was something desperate in her voice, something I'd never heard before, "you'll have nothing. No money. No reputation. No family. You'll be nobody." I stopped at the threshold, looked back one last time. "Good," I said. "I'd rather be nobody than be yours." And I left. Elena left Detroit a week later. Took a nursing job in Portland, got Mateo into a school out west, cut all ties to Michigan. I helped her pack, watched her load her life into a U-Haul truck, and felt something inside me crack clean in half. She asked me to come with her. God, how I wanted to say yes. But I said no. Not because I didn't love her. I did. I loved her more than I'd loved anyone or anything in my entire life. But I knew that wherever I went, Ania's shadow would follow. Her need for control wouldn't end just because I moved to a different city. She'd find me. She'd find ways to hurt the people I loved. She'd burn the whole world down rather than let me go. Elena deserved better than that. She deserved a life that wasn't built on lies and blood and secrets. So I let her go. I stood in the parking lot of her apartment and watched her drive away, and I didn't cry. Couldn't. The tears had been burned out of me years ago, in a cell in Jackson, in alleys where I made problems disappear. In the moment I realized the person I'd sacrificed everything for never actually loved me at all. She just needed me. There's a difference. Then I did the hardest thing I've ever done. I disappeared. You ever just walk away from your whole life? Not run. Not escape. Just walk. I moved to a town called Port Huron, right on the border with Canada. Population 30,000. The kind of place where nobody asks questions because everyone's got something they're not talking about. I got a job at a shipyard. Manual labor. Welding mostly. My hands, which had once made problems disappear, now built things. Fixed things. Created instead of destroyed. I changed my name, not legally, just practically. Started going by Ezekiel. Heavy name for a heavy past. Or maybe it was hope. The valley of dry bones brought back to life. I grew a beard. Put on 30 pounds of muscle from the physical work. Stopped checking my old email accounts, my old phones. I lived in a 1-bedroom apartment above a laundromat, and the sound of the dryers running helped me sleep at night. I learned how to be ordinary. I sacrificed the power Ania had promised me, the money, the respect, the fear, just to have something she never understood. A soul that wasn't heavy anymore. I chose to be a nobody instead of being her everything. The first year was the hardest. I'd wake up at 3 a.m., heart pounding, convinced I heard her voice in the hallway. I'd see a black Mercedes and feel my chest tighten, my hands start to shake. I'd flinch when someone said my old name, my real name, in a crowd, even though it wasn't me they were talking to. I was waiting for her to find me. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. But slowly the fear faded. I made a friend at the shipyard. A guy named Tommy, 60-something, missing 2 fingers from a welding accident, who told terrible jokes and never asked about my past. We'd grab beers after shift sometimes, sit at a dive bar called The Anchor and talk about nothing important. Sports. Weather. The best way to fix a leaky boat hull. It was the most normal I'd felt in 25 years. I started going to a diner on Saturdays. Always ordered the same thing. Eggs over easy, rye toast, black coffee. The waitress, Carol, mid-40s, too much makeup and a kind smile, started having my order ready before I sat down. "You're a creature of habit, Ezekiel," she'd say. Guilty. Nothing wrong with that. World could use more consistency. I started reading books that weren't about manipulation or power. Fiction mostly. Stories about normal people living normal lives, falling in love, making mistakes, finding redemption. I watched sunsets over Lake Huron. Learned the names of the ships that passed by. Started recognizing the regulars at the diner, the guys at the shipyard, the cashier at the grocery store. I learned how to sleep without checking the locks 3 times. I learned how to be a person again. And for 3 years I heard nothing from Ania. I thought maybe she'd moved on. Found a new ghost. Built a new empire on someone else's bones. I should have known better. Monsters don't move on. They starve. The news broke on a cold morning in November. I was at the diner, halfway through my eggs, when Carol turned up the TV mounted in the corner. A local news anchor was talking about a building collapse in Detroit, a luxury apartment complex under construction. Scaffolding gave way. 4 workers dead. A dozen injured. The developer's name flashed on the screen, Ania Grant. I set down my fork. Carol shook her head. Terrible thing. Those poor people. I couldn't speak. Just stared at the screen as they showed footage of the collapsed building, the twisted metal, the emergency responders pulling bodies from the rubble. "You okay, Ezekiel?" Carol asked. "You look like you've seen a ghost." The irony wasn't lost on me. "I'm fine," I managed. "Just, terrible thing." Over the next few weeks, the story unraveled like cheap thread. Forged safety permits. Substandard materials purchased to maximize profit. Inspectors who'd been paid off to look the other way. Money trails that led to offshore accounts, shell companies, a web of lies so tangled it took federal investigators months to untangle. And at the center of it all, Ania. The feds circled. Investors became predators, distancing themselves, pointing fingers, giving interviews about how they'd always had concerns. Partners who'd once kissed her ring now lined up to testify against her. She was alone. For the first time in her life, she had no one to clean up her mess. No one to make the witnesses forget. No one to take the fall. She needed her ghost. I heard about it from Tommy, of all people. He'd been scrolling through Facebook during lunch break, saw a post from an old Detroit contact. "Anyone know where Malik is? Someone's looking for him. Serious money. Like life-changing money. You know any Malik?" Tommy asked, casual, not looking up from his phone. My heart stopped. "Common name," I said, forcing my voice to stay steady. He shrugged. "Yeah, I guess." But I knew. Ania was searching. Calling in every favor, every debt, every whisper network she'd ever built. She was offering money, making promises, pulling strings. She needed someone to take the fall. She needed someone to make the evidence disappear, to intimidate witnesses, to fix the unfixable. She screamed my name into the dark. But I wasn't there. I'd stopped feeding the monster. And now the monster was starving. The trial never happened. The prosecutors had enough evidence to bury her 10 times over. OSHA violations, manslaughter charges, wire fraud, racketeering. They had her dead to rights. But Ania didn't break under interrogation. She didn't flip on her partners. She didn't plead out. She just unraveled. I saw the footage online, leaked from a security camera in her penthouse. The one I used to visit, where she'd pour me scotch and tell me we were invincible. The penthouse was empty now. Most of her assets had been frozen, her properties seized. But someone, probably a lawyer trying to build an insanity defense, had left the security camera running. In the video, Ania sat on her white leather couch, still in a suit, still perfectly composed. Hair done. Makeup flawless. But she was talking to an empty chair across from her. "I don't understand, Malik," she said, her voice calm, measured, like she was having a normal conversation. "I built this for us. For you. Every deal, every property, every risk, it was all for us. For what we promised each other." She paused, tilted her head like she was listening to an answer that would never come. "You're angry. I get that. I pushed too hard with Elena. I see that now. But you'll forgive me. You always do. You always come back." Another pause. Her hands started to shake. "Malik." Silence. "Malik, please. I can't do this without you. I don't know how to do this without you." Her voice cracked. "Please." The video cut off. They moved her to a psychiatric facility 3 months later. High security, somewhere in upstate New York. Involuntary commitment after 3 different psychiatric evaluations determined she was a danger to herself. The news stopped covering her after that. She wasn't a story anymore, just a cautionary tale, a name people half remembered when someone mentioned Detroit or real estate or the price of ambition. I heard, through Tommy's endless Facebook scroll, through whispers in the grapevine I'd tried to leave behind, that she still talks to me. That she sits in her room, staring at the white wall, waiting for her ghost to walk through the door and fix everything. That she's built an entire reality around my return. That in her mind, I'm still loyal, still devoted, still willing to sacrifice everything for her. She finally got the world she always wanted. One where she was the only person in it, and it destroyed her. My revenge wasn't a plan. It wasn't some elaborate scheme I spent years plotting. It wasn't poison in her scotch or evidence planted in her files or a dramatic confrontation where I listed every way she'd hurt me. It was simpler than that. It was just moving on, walking away, refusing to be her tool anymore. Letting her face the consequences of her choices without someone to absorb the impact, to make the problems disappear, to enable her worst impulses. She built an empire on my silence, my sacrifice, my willingness to erase myself for her benefit. And when I took that away, when I stopped feeding the monster, the whole thing collapsed. The most dangerous thing you can do to a monster isn't to hunt it. It's to stop feeding it, to let it starve in the darkness it created. I still live in Port Huron, still work at the shipyard, still go to the diner on Saturdays. Sometimes I think about Elena. I looked her up once, just once, on social media. She's married now, has a kid, looks happy in her photos. Genuinely happy, the kind of happiness that radiates through a screen. I'm glad. She deserved that ending. Sometimes I think about the pact Dania and I made in that basement. We don't leave each other. I wonder if she thinks I broke it. If somewhere in that fractured mind of hers, she hates me for walking away. But I didn't break it. She did. The moment she chose power over people. The moment she decided my happiness was less important than her control. The moment she stopped seeing me as a person and started seeing me as a possession. I just finally saw it for what it was. I don't regret my choice. Not the years in prison. Not the blood I cleaned. Not the empire I walked away from. Not even losing Elena, though that one still hurts sometimes, a phantom ache where my heart used to be. Because I learned something Ania never did. Freedom isn't about having power over others. It's about having power over yourself. The power to walk away from poison dressed up as loyalty. The power to choose peace over power. The power to let go of people who only love the parts of you they can use. And I'm free now. She isn't. She's trapped in a prison of her own making. One with no walls but the ones in her mind, waiting for a ghost who will never return. If you made it this far, thank you. For listening. For caring about a story that's probably uglier and quieter than the revenge tales you're used to. For staying with me through 8 years of prison, 15 years of shadows, and 3 years of learning how to be human again. Maybe you've got your own ghost you need to lay to rest. Maybe you're the one currently being used as a foundation for someone else's tower. If you are, I hope you find the strength to walk away before the concrete sets. The world doesn't need more ghosts. It needs more people. I'm sitting on the pier tonight. The wind is coming off Lake Huron, sharp and smelling of winter, and the mighty Mac is just a memory further north. My hands are scarred, some from the shipyard, some from the life before, but they don't shake anymore. I often think about that first smell. The rust-thick scent of blood in the basement. I used to think that was the smell of our bond. Now I realize it was just the smell of something dying. My name is Malik. I used to be someone's shade. But tonight, as I watch the lights of a freighter crawl across the horizon, I realize for the first time in 40 years, I can finally see my own reflection in the water. And for once, I don't want to look away. This is Revenge Chronicles. Retribution doesn't always need a voice. Sometimes, it's just a shade stepping into the sun, leaving the monster to rot in the echoes of an empty room.